All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Week number 17 in the NFL. We have Saturday games in today's video and the Sunday games, with the exception of Sunday Night Football. That will be posted as its own separate video here on the channel. But Saturday, I think we have 3 games, and then the Sunday games in this video. I'm going to dive into each and every one of those games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player prop spots that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to my final plays, so I'm actually rolling myself absolutely free if that does interest you. Keep an eye down there on the pinned comment. So we're recording this kind of early. I'm about to get on a flight and fly to the West Coast. So recording this on Thursday midday. So we don't know how Thursday Night Football turned out for us, but we do know how our Christmas treated us. 4-0 in the NBA, 4-0 in the NFL. We'll take the cha-ching. We'll pump in some crowd noise. I'm celebrating while we can, because who knows what's going to happen. Obviously, you guys will see this. I think we'll be posting it maybe mid-afternoon on Friday, so a lot of things can change between now and then, but at this time, at the time of recording, I'm on a pretty big high there. So hopefully everyone did have a great holiday and whatnot. But let's go ahead and dive into some football. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Make sure you're dropping your favorite plays down in the comments. You guys are helping out a lot more people than you think. There are angles and plays down in the comments that I would never find or think of myself, and you guys are throwing out bangers. So drop those plays down in the comments. But let's dive in here to game number 1. We got the Patriots taking on the Chargers. There's a lot of games, I would say, that, you know, as we near the end of the year, some games don't matter. Some teams might not be caring. They might be punting, no pun intended. Some teams may want to lose just because of the draft pick and whatnot. This is one where the Chargers still can seal their deal with a win in terms of going to the playoffs. They're most likely, I mean, unless, pigs fly type of thing, they're going to make the playoffs here. I think this game is just going to impact seeding. They'll be anywhere between the 5, 6, or 7 seed in the playoffs, right? So I don't think that it matters all that much, other than, like I said, punching their ticket, because even if, say, the Broncos lose in all different scenarios, the Chargers still will be a playoff team. Even if they lose, I think they have like an 88% chance of making it. So this is really going to come down to seeding. If they win, probably a big spot for them. But the Patriots, what are they playing for, right? The Patriots are just in a spot where they're already mathematically eliminated. They're at 3-12 right now. I don't really think that they have the fire under them. The only thing they might be playing for is for Gerard Mayo. Like, there's been a lot of talk. I'm from Boston. A lot of talk about, we don't want him, we don't want Van Pelt, all this, like, next season. And the players, at least, in that Buffalo game, showed a little bit of life. Maybe they're playing for the coach. So that could be the only angle I take with the Patriots. But here, I think the Chargers want to finish the season strong, and any win helps them right now, obviously, right, in terms of seeding. So give me the Chargers minus the points. Now, I'd probably, if you're going to roll with the Chargers, I might look at like a -6.5 number instead of the 4.5. That 4.5 just seems like what would that number matter, right? So I might go -6, meaning you're going to get better odds and that type of thing. In terms of what we have from a total, I sit here and look at this one and say, well, the Patriots obviously haven't been this offensive juggernaut all year long, but their defense also hasn't looked good. Last 5 weeks here, 28, 34, 25, 30, 24. Now, has the Chargers offense looked tremendous? No, but they finally had a huge offensive performance for the first time in like 3 or 4 weeks against Denver, right? They scored 34 points on that good defense. So I'm going to lean towards the over. This could also be a spot in which I consider Chargers team total over. I do think that they could put some points up to some degree. Now, in terms of player props, I'm not loving too much here. Now, I've seen is J.K. Dobbins, his potential return in time frame and whatnot. If he comes back, yeah, I like a running back against this Patriots team, because I think that they'll be winning and they'll have to get a lot of carries. But think about it. J.K. Dobbins potentially coming back from an injury. Are they really going to workhorse him? Not exactly sure. So I would consider the running back position, but even Gus Edwards is banged up too, right? So yeah, I think that that's where I'd look, but I don't know if I dig too deep into player props in this one. All right, next game up, this definitely has some playoff implications behind it. We got the Bengals taking on the Broncos. The Bengals' playoff chances are definitely slim, right? Like, they're considered on the bubble, but even with a win this week, a lot has to happen for them to have a strong chance of making the playoffs. But what I will say is, if they lose, their chances are over. Now, the Broncos, that becomes something. This is a big game too, because they're almost fighting for a similar spot, right? So if the Broncos lose this one, the Bengals can leapfrog them in essence, because the Broncos have a tough matchup next week. Now, they're playing the Chiefs. Maybe the Chiefs don't play everyone. They kind of take it easy. Who knows? So there's a lot that can happen, but we're talking about this week right here, right now. Both teams are going to come into this one fired up and wanting to win. Now, I do like the Bengals in this spot. I think that a lot of people are going to be on the Broncos. It feels like they've been sort of the prize child so far this season, right? Bo Nix has looked extremely good. This defense has been good. But what really is coming along is their offense. And I do think that they'll put points up against this this Bengals defense. This Bengals defense is not all that great now. As of late, you could say, well, they've started to play a little bit better, right? But they played Dallas, Tennessee, Cleveland over the last 3 weeks, and Cleveland made their defense look good, but realistically still, this Bengals defense is pretty shot. So I think the Broncos can put up numbers, but I think the Bengals can match them. Now, this Denver defense obviously is a good defense, but 2 out of the last 3 weeks, they've allowed, 30 plus points. That's a bad look when Cleveland puts 32 up on you, right? And the Chargers, who was kind of, we talked about it, a stagnant offense, they go and put 34. So I don't know. This Denver team may have turned into somewhat of a like slinging it around type of team versus that gritty, low scoring defense that we saw earlier in the year. So I like the Bengals to put up points. I like the Broncos to put up points. What do you think I'm looking at here, right? A potential over there of 49. I've seen some 49.5s out there. So if you can snag a 49, it probably makes sense and probably will end up moving. So that's a good number to get. And like I said, I like the Bengals. If this is going to be an offensive affair, I still do think the Bengals and Joe Burrow, I'm trusting them over Bo Nix, the rookie, and the Broncos offense. You know what I mean? So to me, if this was a defensive game, then yeah, you're probably obviously leaning towards the Broncos. But I think that this one could have a decent point total. So give me the Bengals. Maybe we can do my favorite spot too, a potential look at the team total over, because then you don't have to worry about the 3.5 or anything like that. And even if I were to roll with the Bengals, even if I were to roll with that, I'd probably buy a point, maybe a half point to get to that -3, to get to that 2.5, to kind of either get it at or inside a field goal. Now, in terms of a total, I don't think Bo Nix is going to have the worst game, and because he's had his ups and downs recently, like, yes, they've been winning, but even that game, what was it, against Indianapolis, I think, he didn't really, play all that tremendous, but I do think that he'll be able to throw the ball a lot in this one, and right now for plus 112 over on FD, you can get him for over 1.5 passing touchdowns. This is a Cincinnati team, passing touchdowns against the 5th most so far this season, and Bo Nix has hit this in 7 of his last 10 games. He's hit it in 8 of his 15, and that's with like 4 weeks of the beginning of the year where he had to kind of ramp up. Over his last 5 games here, he's hit it in 4, averaging 2.4 touchdown passes per game. So I like the idea of him throwing. Maybe we can look at his, passing yards, because it's only at 233.5. Maybe his passing completions at 20.5. So those are definitely things that I would consider as well. But I think that even if the Bengals are scoring a lot, like my game script and my brain thinks, right, the Broncos are going to have to pass to kind of keep up with them. They're not going to be able to run the ball to keep up with this Bengals team. So I like the spot for Bo Nix as well. And in terms of defense versus position from a DVOA adjusted standpoint, Cincinnati allowing a 23% production increase to opposing quarterbacks this season. So that's a good look as well. All right, real quick, guys, since we are talking about player props, I want to talk to you about Sleeper. If you guys don't know what Sleeper is, you are absolutely missing out on one of the most fun apps out there. All it is a DFS app in which you pick higher or lower based on player set projections. The more you win, the more you get paid out. You're going to get a Jaden Daniels 0.5 passing yard square when you sign up with the link in the description. I'll also put it in the pinned comment, but that's not the best part. The best part, and I keep saying it, is their Play 5, just a $5 lineup, gets you 55 back instantly. It's an absolute no-brainer. You're 11xing your bread just by placing a $5 lineup. What if that $5 lineup hits, right? You're going to get the payout for that and you get the 55. No-brainer, guys. Check out that link in the description. Get this Jaden Daniels square. They're always dropping Sunday promos and whatnot too. So a lot of discounts and promos over on Sleeper. Go ahead and check it out. That link will be down below. If it's available in your state and you're not on Sleeper yet, you're drastically missing out. Link down below. All right, Rams taking on the Cardinals. This is one in which the Rams have a lot to play for, and the Cardinals really don't. So this is most likely a Rams spot, and the spread would indicate, right, that it's sitting at 6.5. If the Rams win this one, they essentially have a 99-point-something% chance of making the playoffs. So, yes, they pretty much punch their ticket, which, as of right now, they're already in the playoffs. But, again, to clinch it and to solidify the deal, this is spot. Whereas the Cardinals are sitting here being like, what are we playing for, right? The season didn't really go as expected. 7-8 in the NFC West, like not exactly the biggest spot for them. So yeah, I think the Rams come in caring about this, and I apologize if you guys don't agree with the mindset, but I'm very much in the mindset of who is caring about these games and who is not, and then we're kind of tackling the spread after the fact. You know what I mean? Like I think before even looking at that, I look at the situation of the Rams, regardless of even how they match up and whatnot, which I do like the matchup. The defense has looked okay recently and all that, but again, I'm kind of thinking playoff situation more than anything. But this Rams defense, 2 straight weeks now, it's San Francisco and the Jets, right? 6 and 9 points. They've allowed 15 points over the last 2 games. You could be like, well, the game before that, they allowed 42, but to Buffalo, right? It's like, yeah, that's obviously a great offense. So I still think that the defense could come through. I'd potentially consider maybe an Arizona team total under here. This offense has looked meh. Like they have little spurts of looking good, and they've scored 30 points in back-to-back weeks, but one was against the Patriots and one was in a loss against Carolina. When they've played anyone relatively good, they're not looking all that tremendous. They played Seattle twice out of the last 3 weeks prior to those two games, 18 points and 6 points. And then Minnesota, they scored 22 against. So if we could get a Cardinals team total under, in fact, we can probably find an updated line right now. Cardinals team total under. This is more or less fading the Cardinals than it is totally backing the defense. But yeah, right now under 21.5 for -130. Maybe that's a look. They can still score 3 touchdowns and wouldn't cash it. So that might be the direction I go in, just to kind of avoid having to score by a touchdown and an extra point at 7 points. But still, I don't mind it. If you're all over the Rams and you hear me say this, then yeah, I'll give you my stamp of approval, because I do think that they care and they're going to want to be firing on all cylinders heading into the playoffs. And this just has the added bonus that if they win this one, they're pretty much solidifying, even though they pretty much are solidified. I don't even know if you could say that, right? I think if they lose this and a couple other factors happen, they're still kind of, I want to say I saw like 67%, something like that. So I guess it wouldn't be solidified if they lose, making it even more of a spot for a win. Now, in terms of a total, like I said, I think that the Rams defense shuts down the Cardinals, but I wouldn't sit here and be like the Cardinals defense is going to contribute much and, we look at an under. I don't like that. So I think I'd go Rams team total over, Cardinals team total under, and not touch that 47.5, because, again, one team I think is going to have no offensive success, and the other one I do think is going to have offensive success. So this is kind of like two ships, like I tell you guys, passing in the night. If you split it up, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of isolate the variables. Oh, and no player props that I'm craving in this one overall. Just from a data standpoint, wide receivers against the Rams have had a little bit of a production increase over the season, but nothing notable. It's like 8 and 9% to wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. So I don't think I'm diving into that one, but just if, for your own information. All right, Philly is taking on Dallas here. So Philadelphia loses last week, which I guess, if the Detroit Lions keep winning, it's not going to matter all that much anyways. Like Philly's probably most likely, if they play well to close out the year here, going to be the number 2 seed, right? Jalen Hurts, though, goes down in that game, and he was out for the rest of the game with a concussion. I'm not sure his exact status right now. In terms of the injury report, he's listed as questionable, and he also has a finger injury, so it's like now he's hurt in multiple ways, so he did not participate in their most recent practice. That said, we still are waiting to see if he is going to suit up and play or not. The weird thing is that if he doesn't, Kenny Pickett's also listed as questionable, and you saw Kenny Pickett come in, and he kept like moving around, and it turns out, yeah, he has a rib injury. He didn't come out of the game and whatnot, but he hurt himself playing in place of Jalen Hurts in that game against Washington. So you now have both your starter and your backup listed as questionable. If neither one of those guys go, Tanner McKee is their next one, and you saw him warming up. It was like the emergency third-string quarterback spot. Like, they started talking about it, and I don't think that they want that to happen as they lead into the playoffs, because what happened to the Eagles last year? Now, it happened beforehand, but they started to kind of crumble and whatnot, right? So I'm hoping as a future ticket holder of the Eagles Super Bowl and NFC Championship winner, which I will very happily hedge if I need to, so I'm not all in on it, but I'd be very happy if Jalen Hurts comes back. That is the biggest injury to note here. Nakobe Dean listed as questionable. That's a massive piece of their offense. He didn't participate in practice, but hoping he plays as well. But either way, we've only been talking about the Eagles so far, right? They are playing Dallas, and it's like, are we going to sit here and be like Dallas is all that great? They've looked a lot better as of late, but listen to the defenses that they've had to play. Washington, New York, Cincinnati, Carolina, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, Washington, even Cincinnati, you could say, okay, decent teams, right? But the defenses aren't their strong suit. So this is going to be by far and away the best defense that they've played in a long time. In head-to-head games, it's pretty split. I mean, they played earlier in the year, and the Phillies beat them. Philadelphia beat them 34-6. Dallas obviously a little bit, cruising a little bit more offensively, but I still think the Eagles win this one by 10 plus. The numbers are off here. It's 9.5, not 6.5. But either way, I do like the Eagles to win this one by 10. The total's at 41.5, so the graphic isn't updated. But either way, Eagles spot for me. In terms of what we'd be looking at from a player prop perspective, I think Cooper Rush pass attempts could definitely be a consideration here. Now, why am I not going passing yards? He's looked good and all that. I do agree that, he'll be passing a lot more, and that probably is to some degree going to lead to, I guess the potential of him passing the ball for a lot of yards. But I like the idea of just give me the quantity. He'll throw the ball a decent amount. CeeDee Lamb and Tolbert are both questionable. Hopefully they play for this, because then they'd have more of a passing game. But this Philadelphia defense has been very, very good, both against the pass and the rush. But at the same time, it's like Think about it. If they're losing by a bunch, 9.5-point favorites, losing by a bunch, what are they going to do? Throw to get back in the game. So Cooper Rush over in attempts and maybe completions, but I don't want him to have quality. I just want quantity from him this game. All right, this is a game that definitely does not matter now. Funnily enough, I did make a play in H2H, the show that I do with Tassos. I made a play in this game, and I took the Raiders money line. Now, that was earlier in the week, and they were underdogs. So, yes, I liked the plus money. Do I still like the Raiders money line? Sure, I listened to, and the only reason I really do like it is two reasons. The Saints stink, right? And I listened to Brock Bowers talk about how this locker room, we're trying to win some games. We know that, this isn't the season we wanted, and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, okay, so if they're trying to win some games, they might be fired up, and now they're playing a team like the Saints that they should be able to beat. The one thing is, we want to keep an eye on Derek Carr, right? Derek Carr is listed as questionable. If it's Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener, I do like the Raiders' money line, even though this game really doesn't matter. But if Derek Carr plays, that could change things, right? So right now, it's only a pick-em. We've seen the Raiders as favorites. We've seen the Saints as favorites, bouncing back and forth. I like Raiders' money line. That's probably my story. I'm going to stick to it. In terms of the total here, it's sitting at 37.5. It's way down there, but how can you really argue for an over when you think about these two offenses, right? Like on the season, this Raiders team is averaging 17.6 points per game. Over the last 3 weeks, 13.7. You flip it over to the Saints side of things, last 3 weeks, under 16 points a game. So you add those together and you're looking at 28 points pretty much, right? 29 points. So I have to lean towards an under, but maybe it's even like a Saints team total under because I just cannot see them putting up points. Like think about that game against Green Bay. It is really hard in the NFL to be shut out. Like it's hard. It's not baseball or anything like that. Like a pitcher gets hot. No, it's like you can have fluke plays and penalties that get you closer and closer. A field goal if you don't like. They scored 0 points against that Packers team. Packers are a good team, but 0 points is 0 points. You know what I mean? So I lean Saints team total under and the full game under, I guess. And I feel like we spent way too much time on this game. But you know what? Like I said, I did have a play on it already on H2H, so had to talk about it to some degree. All right, Bills taking on the, that's not the Chiefs. Let's fix that. All right, hopefully that looks okay in editing. But either way, Bills taking on the Jets here, not the Chiefs. But either way, minus 8.5 is a large number in this spot. And the Bills really don't have a path, even because the Chiefs win on Christmas and the Chiefs play the Broncos. I think even if they lose, they're not, there's isn't a spot for the Bills to over. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me, but I think the Bills are essentially out of the first place running, even if they win out, right? So with that being said, I don't think the Bills are going to want to stomp the Jets. And this Jets team, yeah, you can laugh at them all you want. They've had a couple good weeks. I'm not talking about the Rams game. They scored 9 points. But before that, 27-21, 26-32. Those are against bad defenses. This is decent Bills defense, right? But we just saw the Patriots keep that to within a 3-point game. So I don't think the Bills will go absolute full bore in this one. And we should see, I think, cold rain in Buffalo by game time. So it's like, I think this is probably a sloppy, messy game where 8.5 is going to be a huge number. So I'll sound the psycho alert alarm. Yeah, I think the Bills win, but I think the Jets cover that 8.5. They looked pretty damn bad last week. They lost by 10, but this is the Jets team that's playing for pride at this point. And the Bills technically, unless I'm completely wrong about that, you guys can fact me in the comments, but unless I'm completely wrong, the Bills can't like leapfrog the Chiefs to the 1 seed if the Chiefs, after them winning on Christmas. So why would the Bills go again full bore in this one? And 8.5 points in a rainy game in which we just saw the Bills kind of take their foot off the gas against the Patriots. Give me the Jets plus the 8.5 points. In terms of the total, it's sitting at 46.5. I just mentioned the weather. Now I am, like I've mentioned, recording this a few days in advance, so anything can change. And if it's nice out and warm all of a sudden in Buffalo, it's like, oh damn, we liked the Jets because of the weather, and I like the under because of the weather. All that can change. It's very much weather dependent. So if you're taking this and hearing this through your ears right now, which appreciate you guys listening. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and comment 19 if you're hearing this part. But if you are listening to this, know that it's very much weather driven for me. I think I still would like the Jets plus the 8.5. It's not the weather, but that weather is a massive, massive factor. Now, from a player prop perspective, I do think again, not to say weather 10 times in 1 minute, but James Cook could have another good game. We cashed on him last week. I do like him on the ground as well as to score a touchdown. So 2 looks there. And then in terms of a Jets player prop, maybe a look at, Devontae. Like this Jets team is weird because I'm not trying to put too much weight into what we saw, last week, right? Last week they looked really, really bad, but before that they were kind of cruising. Like Devontae Adams had 109, 198, and then he just finished 1.5 yards shy. So I think he had his line 68.5. He finished at 68 last week. So he's been hovering right around his receiving number. And if the Bills do, they're 8.5 point favorites, they do run, try and chew clock, the Jets are going to have to try and push the ball downfield pretty quickly. And Adams is going to be the spot. I also don't mind Garrett Wilson. I think the Jets throw the ball in this one. All right, we can go through this one fairly quickly. We got the Bucs taking on the Panthers. The Bucs still trying to find an angle to making it to the playoffs, right? So if they win out, they'll be in the playoffs, hopefully, right? If they do lose, if they lose either one of their last 2 games, so even if they beat the Panthers this week and then they go and play, who are they playing? Let's see if we can find that. The Saints the next week. If they lose one of these games, it's going to be massive, right? And there's obviously other teams playing too that impact it, but the Bucs have the Panthers, then the Saints, and what they have to do is win to try and get their chances to make the playoffs. Why wouldn't they be able to? Now, the question is, we're not talking about win or loss here, right? I think the Bucs will win this game. 8.5 is a decent number, but I'm not buying, and I haven't been buying, this Panthers team, like, they've looked good, they've been covering all this, but they beat Arizona. Like, I understand that. I still think this is a spot in which the world's going to be on the Panthers because it's such a big number, and I think the Bucs smoke them. So, yeah, this is one I gave out on H2H as well. It was 7.5 at that time. I took 9.5 as an alternate number and got some plus money, which I'd still probably do this year. I think this is a double-digit win for the Bucs. Why are the Panthers trying to win a game? You know what I mean? In terms of what we have from a total, I'd probably just go Bucs team total over and call it a day. I don't want to have to rely on Bryce Young and the Panthers to put up points. You're going to sit here and be like, well, look at that. They scored 36 last week. Yeah, they can do that, but even if they score 36, I think the Bucs are still really contributing offensively, so that Bucs team total over that we'd have in our pocket probably would look good if the Panthers are scoring a bunch, right? Because I don't think that Baker's going to have trouble with this defense or anything like that. So I like the Bucs team total over, as well as the Bucs, maybe alternate line just to beat them by a bunch, right? Now we have a couple spots to look at here. I think that Bucky Irving could have a very, very good game. This is a Panthers team that teams have run all over this year. And obviously, especially when they've been losing by a bunch, the opposing running backs and get some run. But I think it's a decent spot for him to score a touchdown. Right now, you can get that. I think it's minus 140, minus 135-ish, which I do like that spot. And also, like I mentioned, I think he's going to have a good game. So his rushing yards right now is 78.5. Head-to-head against the Panthers, they played in early December. He had 152 against them. Why wouldn't they just run that back? You know what I mean? Bucky Irving all day for me here. Unfortunately, we do have another one that I don't care too much about. Yes, the Colts are still, grasping onto straws here to try and make the playoffs. So, sure, I guess that's a spot to probably think about them favorably. They have the Giants and then the Jaguars. So, yeah, they'll probably come in here and do their best to win it. But overall, the Colts most likely aren't making the playoffs, right? Like, this is a tough spot for them. So they will try hard, but 8.5 points seems like it's a heck of a lot. I don't think this team is thinking they really can make the playoffs. They're just not eliminated yet in a sense. So as crazy as it is, if the Giants do roll with Drew Lock, I'm probably going to end up leaning towards them at plus 8.5. Is it great? No. Do I think that I actually get there myself? No. It's still taking the Giants at some point, which just grosses me out, right? So I don't think that I get there, but I just think 8.5 is a little bit too much to lay as the Colts, even though, yes, they still have some playoff hopes. I feel like they're hopes. That's kind of it. So Giants plus the points. Total sitting at 40.5 here. What Giants team are we going to get? What Colts team are we going to get? Like, very much up in the air. So I think I'll lean towards an over just because I probably would have put this game at like a 41.5, 42.5. So it shows you how thin that margin is. But I do think that we could see like a game in which one of these two teams kind of puts up 24 plus points. I don't know who it would be, but neither defense is all that great. So the other team would just have to follow suit, and we most likely get to a 40 number. But again, guys, if I can be, like I usually am, honest about everything, this is not a game that I want to touch with a 10-foot pole. I warned you. I said that there's some games on the slate that are just gross, and Jacksonville taking on Tennessee is most certainly one of those games. Now, both of these teams have been literally mathematically eliminated, right? The 3-12 Jacksonville Jaguars against the 3-12 Tennessee Titans. Now, we saw them play, 4 weeks ago? And this is a 10-6 game. I think that something similar could happen in this one, so I don't mind an under. That's probably the only thing that I could even conceptualize. If you're taking Jacksonville on the spread or Tennessee, you're just picking, you know what I mean? Like, you're just flipping a coin, which, yeah, you have a 50% chance of winning, but a 50% chance of losing. So I don't see any edge on either side here. Maybe you can make the argument that Tennessee's defense is better, but even still, like as of late, it hasn't been. And on the season, you have the team that allows the one, in terms of 31st amount of points, so the second most, and then you have the team that's allowing the 29th, so what is that, the the fourth most points. So it's like you have two really bad defenses and two offenses that, again, I like the under still, even though I'm talking defenses here, two offenses that are bottom of the barrel in terms of scoring. So it's like, this is technically just a coin flip to me. I don't mind the under just because we already have seen an under between these two teams, but yeah, your guess, and it is a guess, is as good as mine in this spot. All right, Cleveland taking on Miami here. Another team that has a very thin margin to make the playoffs in the Dolphins. If they lose, they're pretty much out. If they win, they have via NFL.com, a 14% chance of making the playoffs. So are they playing for something? Sure. Is it probable that they'll make the playoffs? No, this is just 6.5 points, though, and I think this Dolphins offense, though they've shown some up and downs, in the season overall, but just as of late, last 5 weeks, they have 2 games over 30 points, 1 game at 29, and then 2 games that were sub 20. So they've been kind of up and down, but I don't really trust anything about this Cleveland team overall, right? Like this Cleveland team, this defense doesn't look great. 41 allowed to Denver, 27, 21, 24 in the next 3 games. I think the Dolphins can put up a decent number here, so I will lean towards an over. The one thing to watch here is a 50-50 chance of rain, and I think it's going to be somewhat warm, like 55 degrees, so not freezing in Cleveland here, but if the rain's there, I probably don't end up touching the Dolphins or the team total over because I'm taking them and leaning towards them very much based on offense. But I still, until we know if that's the truth or not with the rain, I like the Dolphins. I also like their team total over as well as the over, but definitely want to keep an eye on that weather. All right, we have a good one here. Vikings taking on Green Bay. Obviously, 2 playoff teams, but in terms of seeding, this can go multiple directions, right? If the Vikings win and Detroit loses and that type of thing, we could be looking at the Vikings leapfrogging them in terms of getting that 1 seed, which would be absolutely massive, right? Now, if Green Bay wins, the Vikings will probably obviously still be a playoff team, but then they won't have that chance at the 1 seed. So I expect the Vikings to come into this one pretty damn fired up and whatnot. And Green Bay obviously has been really, really good. But I do think that, there's a level of people are still sleeping on this Vikings team, and the fact that they're only 1.5 point favorites with this situation behind them, I do think very much matters. Now, for Green Bay, even if they go and beat the Vikings here next week, who do they have? I think it's the Bears. So they'll probably win that. They're still sticking right in that 5-6 seed spot. It's not going to matter all that much. But the Vikings, they win this one, and then who do they play in that last week? Oh, they play Detroit, you know what I mean? So if the Vikings win this one and then get a shot at the team that they're battling that 1 seed with, that's going to be huge, massive. So I expect the Vikings team to really fire on all cylinders here and take it into next week with some aggression. So give me them minus the 1.5. In terms of the total, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of caught between 2 spots here. The Vikings and Packers can both play some serious defense, so I think I lean slightly towards the under, but think about the playmakers on these teams and whatnot. Minnesota has scored in their last 5 weeks here, 30, 23, 42, 30, 27. That offense is cooking right now, right? Now, Green Bay's defense is decent, but their offense too, they've scored 30-plus points in 5 straight weeks, so it's tough to take an under. I still think the defense will kind of, shine through here, so I'm going to lean under, but just know that it's a sketchy one because there's so many playmakers and these offenses are playing really well overall. And they've faced some defenses, you know what I mean? Like the Packers putting up 30 against Seattle. Seattle's defense isn't bad. They played Detroit. They put up 31. Minnesota hasn't really played. They played Seattle, put up 27. So it's they've played some defenses, but I think that both these teams are playing, I guess most likely, the best defense that they've played in a little bit. So that's why I think that could kind of be the trump card in this spot. Player prop wise, I don't know. I think I'm just rooting for some good football in this one. I think it's a good game. No player props as of right now, but if I do add anything, I'll put it with the final plays over on the Guy Boston site. And if I don't talk about it in the video, I'll add a second bullet point and kind of just explain my reasoning and rationale as to why I do like it. But overall, guys, that is going to wrap it up for this Saturday/Sunday slate video. We obviously have a video for Sunday Night Football coming out, as well as the Monday night game, which will be Detroit and San Francisco. So some good content to come on the channel. Appreciate everyone and your support and your love and whatnot as we close out 2024. Very, 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 very appreciative of that. So thank you guys so much. We'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.